I certainly think that the big commercial banks and potentially, the financial arm of the US government think they can use Bitcoin for something that benefits them. They want Bitcoin transactions, those that they allow to happen, to be completely surveillable. They don't want financial privacy. They don't want you to spend $1 and them not know about it, So, that's essentially where it's headed. And to use Bitcoin, they want it to go in that direction as well. Is that a scenario to be cheered on? I don't think so. Bitcoin's supposed to be ideal money, right? And a tool of financial freedom. And if we let the people that have run this insane monetary casino for decades use Bitcoin for their ends, Bitcoin will cease to be that.
Investigative journalist Whitney Webb warns that Bitcoin's original mission of financial freedom is at risk of being co-opted by the very institutions it was designed to challenge. Bitcoin was created as a response to central bank malfeasance and the 2008 financial crisis, promising sound money and a break from the casino economy. However, major financial entities like the US government, big banks, and corporations such as BlackRock are increasingly embracing Bitcoin, not to support its ethos but to control it, undermining privacy and integrating it into their surveillance-driven systems. Webb highlights a growing push to criminalize privacy tools and manipulate on- and off-ramps to limit Bitcoin's use without oversight. Institutions like the Department of Justice are surveilling platforms such as Binance, retroactively seizing assets, and consolidating power over Bitcoin transactions. If financial elites succeed, Bitcoin could become another tool of the system it was meant to disrupt, losing its revolutionary purpose. She emphasizes the need for vigilance in preserving Bitcoin's ideals of financial freedom. While the asset itself may seem immutable, its infrastructure and usability can be compromised. Webb warns against focusing solely on Bitcoin's price while ignoring the larger battle over its control, urging advocates to resist efforts to turn it into a tool of centralized power.
I think it's pretty clear to everyone that there's a big differentiation, even from the US government's perspective, between Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, right? So seeing Bitcoin as this commodity, from the SEC's perspective, the only commodity in the digital currency space, they obviously want to use that to their benefit if they can. And it seems like they probably can and will. Yeah. So the conflict here, as I see it, is why was Bitcoin originally made? From what's been portrayed, right? It was created as a tool of financial freedom to prevent fiscal irresponsibility on the part of central banks and also commercial banks as a response to things like the 2008 financial crisis. Okay. So what happens when the same powers that Bitcoin was created to thwart start using it to continue their bad behavior? Is it still a tool for financial freedom then, or has it become a tool of the same people it was created to fight against? This is a real discussion that needs to happen in the Bitcoin space. It is happening to a degree, arguably not enough. I think a lot of people can get kind of googly-eyed thinking oh, wow, what if Bitcoin goes above $200,000? And all of this stuff, okay, well, it's great that you might have, a higher net worth, but in a lot of the cases where Bitcoin would be projected to reach astronomical sums, that means the dollar and other currencies widely in use become insanely devalued. So okay, if a loaf of bread is worth $300 because helicopter money in the US has happened and it's hyperinflation, and you have Bitcoin, you might have a lot of, it looks like you have a lot of money in your account, but in terms of purchasing power, you basically have the same lifestyle you have now, but everyone else around you is dirt poor and has nothing. Is that a scenario to be cheered on? I don't think so. Bitcoin's supposed to be ideal money, right? And a tool of financial freedom. And if we let the people that have run this insane monetary casino for decades use Bitcoin for their ends, Bitcoin will cease to be that, period. I also think there's a side effort too, and I think it's very obvious, or should be very obvious to people in the space, to criminalize privacy enhancing tools for Bitcoin transactions. They want Bitcoin transactions, those that they allow to happen, to be completely surveillable. They don't want financial privacy, which is part of this push for bank issued stable coins and deposit tokens and CBDCs, is all about knowing everything about the flow of money. How the public spends their money. They don't want you to spend $1 and them not know about it, So, that's essentially where it's headed. And to use Bitcoin, they want it to go in that direction as well. So, it's very likely, like, in the event that, like, the dollar hyperinflates, like, people have made the case that, like, maybe Bitcoin will be used as a reserve asset to keep the dollar from completely imploding. Like, if the U.S. is going to default on its debt, and we're like, what, at like 34 trillion now? It's like completely insane. And it's not like going to be addressed, the debt problem. So obviously it will explode at some point. So, people have to be very cognizant of, like, these efforts to use Bitcoin for ends that are, like, not good in terms of, like, the original ethos of Bitcoin. So people kind of have in my opinion, have to pick a side here about, like, are you going to fight to keep Bitcoin a tool for financial freedom for everybody, and to keep it being, like, ideal money to as a hedge against central bank and commercial bank malfeasance? Or are you going to let those same central and commercial banks use it for their ends and incorporate it into their system of complete financial control? I think it's very easy to choose what side to be on there. But some people, again, are like, ooh, the prospect of being a millionaire sounds great. But, like, if you to maintain the lifestyle you have now in a hyperinflation scenario costs $1 million, that's not great either. And, if all your transactions are surveillable and all of the stuff, maybe you have more money, but, like, the system they're trying to, like, usher in, commit a thought crime, and the DOJ will just come and seize all your Bitcoin like they do to tons of people. There's certain stuff we have to stand against, or it gets bad for everybody. It doesn't matter how much Bitcoin you hold. But you have to keep in mind too that there's major efforts to, like, co-opt all the on and off ramps in Bitcoin. So, like, even in that scenario, like, if you have a lot of Bitcoin, but, like, you can't use it or exchange it for legal tender, you'd only be able to, like, use it with other people that have Bitcoin, right? And so, like, there's a potential for that to emerge at some point, probably in certain scenarios. But as it is right now, there's an unprecedented effort by, like, the DOJ specifically to get, like, major crypto exchanges under its thumb by making them, the Binance thing is a good example, right? So, like, looking at Binance, what's happened.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Yeah.
Yeah. An insane amount of staff from the Department of Justice are surveilling every transaction that goes through Binance right now. And FinCEN has custodianship of the exchange for the next 5 years. They have all access to all of Binance's data, not just from the settlement forward, but all of their past data. So they can retroactively go and flag transactions, and the DOJ can be like, we're going to seize that wallet for X amount of Bitcoin and add it to, the DOJ's massive Bitcoin holdings, which are among the biggest in the world. Right. So you control all of these on and off ramps and surveil all of that. Like, that is a major problem. Yeah. And I think people have to be really aware of this, like, big push to end online anonymity and financial anonymity, or, like, just privacy that I've been talking about for a long time. So, like, obviously, like, Bitcoin has potential to be something, but if we let these people control the on and off ramps and, like, other major aspects of infrastructure, like, maybe Bitcoin itself is immutable, but they plan to do everything in their power to prevent it from being something that takes a big chunk of their power away. And I think people have to be like, some people are naive about how far these people will go, but you should not be. Like, these are people that do not want to cede their power to anybody, and they're very accustomed to stealing from us. And they don't plan to stop stealing, So, people need to be really aware of that, and, and fight to keep Bitcoin to be something that is empowering and a tool for freedom and financial freedom, because, you know, if enough people get too googly-eyed about the value going up and, you know, pumper bags and all of this stuff, I mean, there's a lot of damage could be done. And, you know, I mean, I wish I had more like positive stuff to say about it, but I mean, it's not like the battle is lost. Like, I'm not saying that. What I'm trying to say is people need to be really aware that there are major efforts to co-opt. Like, maybe there's aspects of it, sure, that like can't be co-opted, but in a practical sense, like for regular people, it can be co-opted. Yeah. And there's when you have groups like BlackRock and all this stuff trying to get in on it, that should be a red flag that like they think they can co-opt it.
Whitney Webb warns that Bitcoin's original vision of decentralization and financial freedom is at risk of being co-opted by powerful institutions like governments, banks, and corporations. These entities are incorporating Bitcoin into centralized, surveillance-focused systems, undermining its core principles. She highlights efforts such as criminalizing privacy tools and increasing control over crypto platforms, which pave the way for elites to dominate Bitcoin's infrastructure. Webb urges vigilance, emphasizing that Bitcoin's value lies in its ability to remain a decentralized alternative, not just an asset within the existing financial system.
I think they see some utility in holding it for a reason, but they definitely don't want to have private Bitcoin transactions. And so that's what this whole effort about linking Bitcoin and terror financing is about. It's made up, essentially, that claim, as I've talked about in the past. And keep in mind that this WEF partnership with these intelligence agencies and these banks also includes Chain Analysis, which is the company often used to say, oh, this terror group, you know, took Bitcoin from this and that, you know. So they're in bed with them. Keep that in mind when Chain Analysis is the source cited as why Bitcoin is bad for whatever. Yeah. So they're going to try and throw the book at it. And, you know, like Elizabeth Warren is like the main front person in Congress for all of these initiatives. And her recent exchange with Jamie Dimon, where he's like, we should illegalize crypto, precisely because Jamie Dimon wants to issue the stable coins and wants to issue the crypto. They want to take fintechs out, and they want to be the guys doing that. And they want to use Bitcoin as a commodity in the space, as like maybe collateral, as a reserve for something. But they want everyone in the US to have to deal with their bank issued deposit tokens and stable coins. That is the plan. It's nuts. It's just like literally Fox is in charge of the hen house to an unbelievable degree. It's madness. But yeah, there's this huge effort that people cannot ignore to go after financial privacy and Bitcoin specifically. And it's all very much tied up with this whole cyber attack taking down the financial system. So if you are the financial system and you know that the banking sector is in major shit, and is going to collapse anyway, and you want to avoid a repeat of 2008 where people blamed the banks and were mad at the banks, how do you do that? Well, a cyber attack comes along, your systems go down, right? And you can blame faceless hackers, literally whoever you want, a random group that uses Bitcoin, a nation state that you want to trigger war with, North Korea, China, Iran, Russia, whatever. All four of them, I don't know. And the banks are absolved, and they're like, well, we have to know who everyone is to prevent this from happening again. So no more online privacy, and we have to stop these terrorists from getting money. So we have to surveil all crypto transactions. We have to illegalize the use of mixers and all. I mean, they have planned it out. I mean, maybe it sounds conspiratorial, but these guys love to steal, and they don't want you to be mad at them for stealing.
Whitney Webb's discussion underscores the urgent need to protect Bitcoin's foundational values of decentralization and financial autonomy. As governments, banks, and corporations increasingly integrate Bitcoin into centralized frameworks, the risk of losing its original purpose grows. Efforts to criminalize privacy tools and consolidate control over crypto platforms reveal a broader agenda to co-opt Bitcoin as a tool for surveillance and economic control, rather than a means of empowering individuals. Webb stresses that the community must remain vigilant to preserve Bitcoin as a decentralized alternative to traditional financial systems. Her insights serve as a call to action for all crypto enthusiasts and advocates of digital freedom. The future of Bitcoin hinges on collective efforts to resist centralization and support technologies that prioritize privacy and autonomy. This is a pivotal moment to determine whether Bitcoin will fulfill its revolutionary potential or become another instrument of elite control. How can individuals and communities actively work to preserve Bitcoin's decentralization? What role should privacy tools play in the future of cryptocurrency, and how can they be defended? Let me know in the comments.